Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 72 of the Inventive Marketing Club. We're here every week to help you build a better marketing strategy. In this webinar, we're talking to Paige NeJame. She's from the Carbon Almanac book or project, which is a powerful tool to help us create change. And when it comes to the climate, we don't need more marketing or more anxiety. We need established facts and a plan of collective action. So hello, Paige, how are you doing?
Hi, how you doing, Ben?
Oh, I'm very well, very well. It's a Friday, so looking forward to popping out to the pub later this evening.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
But before we do that, let's talk about something very important. So I was involved in this project called the Carbon Almanac pretty recently, and I kind of dived in to help them on the technical and web side of things. And I got to meet you as part of that project. And just going through the project, I found it an absolutely fascinating case study, really, in managing sort of a remote project like this. But let's take a little step back and talk a little bit more about what the Carbon Almanac is and maybe where that idea came from. Would you give us a little summary?
Right. So the Carbon Almanac is a book. It's an almanac, just like you would have the World Almanac or even like the Guinness Book of World Records. You can open it to any page and sort of learn something new, shut it, and then open to a different page next time. It was the brainchild of Seth Godin, and a bunch of us applied to help him back in the fall of 2021 to help him write the book. And what's so interesting about it is about 300 of us came together to write it. And all of us were volunteers. So we weren't paid. And it's a really interesting case study because normally when you're working with a remote team, they're paid. They have to be there. But everyone was a volunteer that wanted to be there. And so it didn't even feel like work. All of us chose a spot that was maybe our expertise, or something that we were interested in learning. And so it really, really was a magical process of putting this together. Each of us chose sections of the book. There were people that did infographics. There were people that wrote articles. There were people that fact checked. There was all sorts of people with all sorts of expertise coming together to collaborate on this book. And we wrote it in about 4 months' time. And
gosh, that's quick, isn't it?
4 months. It was really quick.
Yeah, and it's a big book as well. I just should show people. This is the book here. It's a hefty tome, although actually it's easy reading. It's got a lot of information in there. I'll see if we can show some. If I can flick through the website here to see how it works. So that's quite a lot of content to produce in that amount of time. So it's amazing, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there were people that sort of led the way in showing others how to do it. And so I love to write, but I don't always write to have to show other people. And that was really scary. But the first few times you do it, it's scary. And then it's not scary anymore. It's sort of like anything. You sort of practice it, and then you understand that you're putting it out there. People are making it better. And it was never, any feedback we got was never about us. It was about the work and how the work could be better. So it was the most supportive environment, but also the most engaged because, again, none of us had to be there. We all wanted to be there.
Yeah, to produce it. What's the purpose behind the book? What's the aim of the project?
Yeah, so the reason Seth came up with this idea was he didn't feel like he had the knowledge, the real, the facts behind climate change. He knew he had to, we needed to save the earth, but he didn't really know the mechanics behind it. And so once he realized that most people or lots of people felt the same way. And there's no way to solve the climate crisis if we don't know the facts and can talk about them. So I found myself, when I got onto the project, I was a real rookie about climate change. And I found myself, just sort of gobsmacked about how much I didn't know. I kind of came on thinking, well, I recycle, so I'm doing all I can. And I was so dead wrong. And so it was so interesting, right? That I was the target audience of this. So that is the reason the book came to be.
Well, I think you're right there, because I feel that there's certain things I'm doing quite well in terms of recycling or using less energy, or reducing energy, trying to buy from the right places. But actually, that's great, but that's a small drop in the ocean. It's really about getting everyone else to look at what they're doing and to talk to some of the big organizations who are maybe not helping the situation. And I think that's what I took from the book. It's not about necessarily what you can do. It's about how you can help nudge people in the right direction who have an opinion about something, or have got this received opinion from somewhere else about what's affecting the climate, whether there's a problem. And it's basic, lots of facts, isn't it, that help you either present that argument or talk about it with different people and start having those conversations where things can actually move in a positive direction, rather than, frankly, at the moment, it's just it seems like a lot of fighting, a lot of people just discussing whose problem it is, rather than almost just moving past that and saying, well, it doesn't really matter. We've got to now move forward and do something about it. And I think I took that from it, really.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So you feel it, right? You go and you recycle your glass and your aluminum, and you feel like this can't be enough, right? You know that in your heart. And but the other side of that is like, I don't have time to run for office, right?
Yes.
So what is the
where you can actually make that impact? Yeah,
right. Like, so, and I think people think, oh, okay, so there's only two ways to do this. I can run for office or I can recycle. And where's the in between on that? And so what I think people hear the word, and we use the word systemic change. And I think that is really kind of a scary term for people. I think really all we're saying is, like, almost like the way we wrote the book, Ben, choose something you're passionate about. Like, for me, it might be composting, right? And 10x that individual action. Take something you sort of already know about and just make it bigger. So if you lived like in a condo complex, you could maybe get the whole condo complex composting. And that would be probably a pretty easy thing to get by if you just went to your condo board meeting and talked for 10 minutes. So you don't have to pick it necessarily or run for office. You can just take something you're pretty passionate about and 10x it. And which is essentially what the book is, right? Seth writes books. I love to write. So that's my contribution, right? So who would think that you could write and solve climate change? But this is what the book is about. And so something that seems like it would have nothing to do with climate change, the ability to write clearly, becomes a real tool for people who need that knowledge.
And there's a lot of people involved in the book. I mean, I'll just scroll down the website we've got here. Certainly at the moment, there's hundreds of people involved over like the whole globe. There's lots of, and I've just met a few of them in terms of working on the project. It's amazing, really, to not only have a movement of this size, but actually many of those people working together to produce, well, not just the book, but multiple resources that have come out of it, which we'll have a look through some of it in a minute. But in terms of who the people involved, obviously Seth was spearheading it, but it's not his thing. It's like he is leading it in a way, but everyone else is also part of that. But there are so many different people who are part of the project, so many companies who are supporting it. I'll just get down to those. Loads of companies who are sort of maybe bringing a small amount of help or support, or providing, like the website I know is provided by Automatic, so they're providing the website and support. And there's lots of people involved in that. And I think in itself, having a project that is almost a catalyst for people to work together to move this forward is amazing. Maybe that takes me to a question I've got. This is a really interesting way of working. I do remote working, so I'm very much used to working with a very small group of people to produce creative things. This is many hundreds of people producing the book, the website, the resources, the photo book, the kids book, the educator's guide, the podcast. There's lots of materials that come out of it, and it's in quite a unique way because it's all you're all. I don't know if you use anything different to begin with, but certainly at the moment that all of the communication is based in a forum technology, quite a nice forum technology actually, but it's basically where you set up conversations, invite people in, and then you talk about what you want to achieve and you go and get it done. It's amazing. Could you maybe just highlight a little bit about how that process worked for you?
Yeah, it was super scary at first. And there was only a few hundred people on the board when I joined. So I can't imagine what it's like to come onto the boards now that there are thousands of people. In fact, we have a little kit, like a starter kit, for those people to say, like, even people who are technically orientated have trouble, like, just getting their head around what we're doing.
It's
but
intense.
Essentially what it is, it's almost like a Slack channel, like hundreds of Slack channels. It's called Discourse. And what it is, it's like a big cafeteria, right? Where people are all having conversations at their own little tables. And all you need to do is walk up to a table. And that's harder to do, like in high school, right? That's much harder to do in real life than it is on Discourse. You just sort of walk into a conversation and you say, hey, I know something about that, or I feel like I could know something and I'd love to contribute. And that's how you start. We have a person, Louise, we call her head of talent. If you need something, you ask Louise, like, who do you know?
Yeah, she's great. She helped me. She helped me at the beginning because I was like, I don't know how to start, who to talk to. And she's like, Simon, tell me what you can do.
Right, exactly. So she's sort of the person that if you don't know where to go, or for somebody that needs a skill, like for me, at one point, I did need Google Analytics, or I needed somebody that could install some analytics. I knew we needed it, but I didn't know how to do it. And so that's how you and your team came to help me on the website redo, or the website 2.0 that we're doing. So anyway, like, that's how it works. It's what's so interesting is because we're volunteers and we want to be there. Yeah. People are super engaged, and it literally does not feel like work. And I've heard that people say that over and over and over again. Like, you feel like you're not only contributing, but doing something that, is sort of your highest level of doing.
No, it's true. And I said to Jonathan the other day, because sometimes I have to dip in and out of the conversation, but I wish I could spend more time doing it. Yes. And it really isn't. It's if I've got some spare time in the morning, let's go and see what I can do, see if I can push something forward. At the moment, I'm writing some JavaScript code to sort of improve the analytics. And I was like, I've got 10 minutes. I can just keep working on that. And you're quite right, because we've chosen to do it, because we see the bigger purpose. It's nothing to do with money. It's nothing to do with glory. It's like I've got some small contribution I can make to further this. It's great. It's brilliant. I love that process.
Right. Imagine that. So like, take that as an example, Ben. That's such a good example. If we're talking about making systemic change, how can Ben do that? Well, he's going to write JavaScript. And you think, well, how is that going to change the climate? Look at what you're doing. And so all we need are people to think about those types of things, what they are skilled at, and then go do it. There's a part in the book, I don't remember where it was. It talks about, like, supporting green candidates. Well, again, you don't have to be the person picketing or the person on the phone, trying to raise money for the green candidate. If you're a good cook, you can bring lunch to those people.
Yeah.
Right. And so that is how you can contribute. And that's the way we all did the Carbon Almanac should be a model for other people to say, hey, I've got some skills. How can I apply those skills to climate change or any cause?
In fact, there was a Zoom call that we had not long after I joined with Seth, and I was quite excited to meet him. It was amazing. You hear this guy who I've read many of his books, listened to his podcast avidly, and he comes out with a lot of wisdom. So it's lovely to be on this Zoom call, even though I was quite shy and sat in the background. But just listening to everyone else, because it was basically an open forum. It's like, well, let's talk about where we're up to, what ideas we've got, just nudging things forward. And during it, I'm listening to other people talk about them going, forming a group, bringing people to talk about the book, making sure it's in copies are in libraries, and just little tiny things like that. And I thought, well, what can I do? What small thing? Okay, I'm working on some bits on the website, but what can I do outside of that? And it's where I had an idea to bring I use lots of examples in my workshops. So I deliver workshops on search optimization and general marketing. Well, I use examples of businesses. And I thought, why don't I just swap those businesses out to be more sustainable businesses or environmentally conscious businesses or consultants who help support people who are sort of on that journey to reduce their carbon impact. And it took me a while to get there, but I thought, well, that's a great idea because there's a little thing I can do. It allows me to start that conversation in workshops and talk to clients about it without being boring about it. And they go, I don't want to listen to that because it's not important to me right now. But it's just that little nudge. I just bring it into the conversation without shoving it down people's throats. And it's that approach is what little things can we do? Not what big things, but what little things that really work together to build some kind of movement. It's amazing. Well, who knows what will come of it, but it certainly seems to be moving very swiftly now.
You think about your circle of control, right? A lot of what we see on the news is something that we probably don't have a lot of control or influence over. So you just really, I find that if you look at what you are, look at your little circle, maybe it's local, maybe it's a little more than local, or maybe it's just, maybe it's just your neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's fine. Start there, right? We're just asking people to start somewhere. And you're right. What I'm sort of stunned at is the idea of once the book is out, that's not it. Just because Seth's name's on the front of the book doesn't mean this is going to sell like hotcakes. We have to keep the conversations going and really, bring in partners. And that is the next step of this book. We've got the book. Now, what do we do with it? That's the most interesting part to me is the change it can create. And it's really drip by drip.
Yeah, it's a really good symbol. Talking about that, should we dive in and just have a look through the website and see what other resources there are for people? There's tons of stuff. I mean, the book is great. It was a big read for me. I do like reading, but it's generally fiction. So what I opted for is the Audible version, which was great. So I downloaded it on Audible, listened to the whole thing, amazing. I'm going to listen to it again. I tend to listen to things in the evening, so it's great. It kind of sinks into my subconscious and gives me lots of ideas and lots of facts. So I'd recommend if you're looking at the book going, it's a lot to read, get the book because it's a great resource. Just have it there anyway. But the Audible version is good. And then you've got lots of resources here. One of the fascinating things I loved, and actually my dad loved this too, because he got hold of the book independently, are the footnotes. So in the book, there's various facts and information, and it's all there are references that you can go and see where that information came from. They're all in the footnotes, but all the footnotes are online. And I think this was quite a process to put them on. There's quite a bit of work involved in this. And it's something I think that's quite unique because often these sort of footnotes are stuffed at the back of the book and they don't look inviting. Whereas these are all, let's just click on one here. These are all sort of specific references. In fact, I think is this one here. Yeah, so anything that's mentioned in this particular section, which is the first part of the book, you've got references to all of that information. Where do these facts come from? And I think that's really good for those who want to fact check. It's there. They've got that information, so they're not disbelieving it. And I think that's quite unique to have this as a feature of the book.
So for example, like geoengineering, that's not my thing, right? But if you're a geoengineer, and then you can come here and look deeper, then you can understand how you might be able to move the needle a little bit. And I will say you are exactly right. Like the footnotes it was a conversation of how to do the footnotes. We didn't know. It was not this good at the beginning. Does that make sense? Like we didn't know how to do this. And there was the person, Leah, who really spearheaded the footnotes, is an incredible person who is, I think her degree might be in library science, where she really knows how to attribute a source, whereas a lot of us did not know how to do that. So this was something that it was a huge undertaking. Because we didn't, most of the stuff, all of the stuff, we didn't make it up. These are all things that we've, found Not all of it's online. A lot of it was talking to people or books. But when it was online, we could link to it.
And it's crucial because there's going to be a lot of things in here because of the divisive nature of global warming and carbon, that people argue about it a lot. And I think if you have an opinion and a statement, you need to back that up. It needs to come from somewhere. So I think it's incredibly important to have that. But it's just done in such a unique way.
Yeah, we hadn't really, this was one of the parts that went around and around for a while because we just wanted to get it right. We knew we had to get it right, but we weren't sure how.
Yeah, well, my dad loves this, so that's good. Yeah. So other things in the book, there are, you mentioned the updates about how if you need to, if in fact, I can't remember, were we talking about the updates before we started recording?
Before we started recording, we were.
Yeah, so you mentioned pre-recording that one of the unique things you do is if there's any updates, then they are published. So if there's a problem, like something that was wrong in the book, a fact that was wrong, then it's updated here for everyone to see. And as you can see, there hasn't been anything else yet. There's just this one. And that, again, is really good because it shows transparency. And you can't possibly get everything right, as even if you try and well source it. I mean, no book does, but it's the fact that you are open to understanding, well, let's get this right, because we want it to be right. It's so important for it to be right.
Yeah, I don't know of another book that does that, right? And so Christy spearheads this. And when people write to us and say, I think this could be clearer, we make it clearer.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And then let me just skip through this one as well. This gives you an illustration of where you can get it. I mean, and this is a paid book as well. This isn't a free book. This is a paid book. You have to go and buy this at a publisher. It doesn't have to be Amazon. There are plenty of other places you can buy this book. But I'm interested behind that. It's a paid for book. It's been published by a dedicated author, but yet it's brought together by a lot of volunteers. Where's the money go? How does that process work?
Yeah. So again, I was not and I might still give you sort of an elementary overview of this, but I'll give you what I know. In the beginning, the book was shopped around to different publishers. And when that happens, they bid on the book and give you what's called an advance. And so Penguin Random House was the publisher that got the book. They gave us an advance. And now what happens is they take that, the sales of the book have to go back and pay for the advance. So that's how book publishing works. I had no idea really. But if there are profits, what we're doing is we're using them to give away books to organizations that can use them. And so that is how the money is being spent. And even for the kids' book, when we have profits, we put out a call for, does anybody need a book for their school library or for their classroom library or a set of books? And we're happy to give those to people that want them. We don't just sort of send them willy-nilly because we don't want them to be like in a box in an office somewhere. We want them to be used, and we want people to want them.
Yeah. So in a way, once it gets past this initial stage of paying back, then every copy that's bought, it contributes to a pool to basically give copies to people who want them. Yeah, that's excellent.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned the kids' book. Let me go to that. So that's in the extras section on the website. So this is free, or you can get a PDF version. It is free. You can get a physical version, which I know we were talking about how you might get that to schools and allow them to have a copy of it.
Yeah.
But maybe sort of give me a little idea about how the kids' book came about.
Yeah. So my job on the regular adult Carbon Almanac was to write the section called Carbon Change for Climate Change for Rookies. And so Mishi, who is an illustrator, and I worked to really drill down for people who hadn't learned about this stuff. Mishi was much more of a climate advocate than I was. And I felt like I could write it because I was the audience. like I said, when I came on, I thought to myself, oh, who better than me to write this book? I'm recycling, right? And it turns out that, only 9% of plastics are ever recycled. So here I am doing.
I know, terrible. Yeah.
It's terrible, right? But again, I didn't even know that when I joined the Carbon Almanac. And so what I started to find was that my kids were like, Mom, how did you not know that? But because they were learning about it in school. And I also, I had a conversation with my mother-in-law, or actually I was listening to a conversation and involved with it a little bit between my son and my mother-in-law. And my son was trying to explain how a hairdryer releases carbon. She was drying her hair. And she was so confused because it's invisible, right? So if there had been, let's say, flames shooting out of her hairdryer, we all would have been on alert, right? We all would have been like, we have to stop this. But because the carbon is released at a coal plant that's generating the electricity for her hairdryer, it's an invisible problem. Even the exhaust from our cars, when we're using a gas car, it's invisible. I mean, it's really, you have no idea. There are no flames shooting out of your tailpipe. And so I think that is a real reason that people are confused about it. And what we tried to do in the rookie section was really, really explain what's happening that you can't see. And then once the rookie section was done, I thought, well, there's just so much here for kids that we could repurpose. And so it started out as a 15 page. We thought, 15 pages, we can tell our story. We can tell the story. And it ended up being about 70. And we knew we wanted it to be a free resource. We knew we did not want this to be something that people had to pay for, because the whole point here is to get the message to spread. And so a group of 90 of us worked on the kids' book. And we, in about 2 or 3 months, had something that looked like you're looking at right now.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just kept growing and growing as we realized, more subjects that we could add. We added them. The idea of the book is that kids can read it to grownups, and kids need to teach the grownups, because us grownups didn't learn about this. And so we need somebody to teach us. And so that's sort of the gist of the book. And the story of it.
Sorry, Paige. I remember you said about kids reading to grown-ups. There was, I think it was in one of the Daily Difference emails, there was the artist talking about an image that she generated, which is of a child reading to the adult. I can't remember where I've seen that.
In there. It's in the if you click on the book, if you click on the download, you could probably scroll down, I don't know, maybe a third of the way through. If you keep going, I'll stop you when I see it.
Yeah, but I thought it was really good, actually. That's a really nice idea, because actually you're going to listen to your child generally. And so if they're motivated to read the book for you.
Right. Absolutely. Actually, it's not a third of the way through. It's not, I think we put it at the end if you kind of scroll to the end a little bit.
See if I can find it.
You go up a little bit. Keep going. Those are the kids that helped us. And we did have kids. That was the other thing. We had like a board of kids. Keep going.
Oh, right. To make sure it would engage them. And the actual style is very nice. It's almost, actually, this is could appeal to lots of adults as well, as a very easy way to engage with it.
Yes. In fact, my mom, who again wants to understand climate change. I don't know where that picture is, but
no, I can't find it now.
Of a kid and it's probably like one up.
It's going to be one we're missing, but it's fine. I'll see if we can find that later.
Yeah. So my mom stole the book off of my table. We had like just a galley copy of it. And she came back to me and said, I get it now. I understand it. And she's like, now when I go to the supermarket and I see a plastic bag, it's upsetting to me. And that's the whole point, right? Is that we just want people to know.
Yes.
And people are afraid to say, oh, geez, I've never learned this. And, if you don't take the time to Google it, you've got a lot on your plate. This just really gives you the facts.
Well, there's lots of other things to look at here. You've got a photo book, which is again another way of looking at the same challenges. It'll load in a minute. I had an issue with it before. It is working. I was a bit at a gasp when it wasn't working before. I think it was my browser was the problem. But this photo book is basically looking at different photos of the impact of climate change. So it's really very interesting.
Stunning. Yes, it is absolutely stunning. And the photo book people really took their time to work with Getty Images. They were the ones that donated the images for these books. And they really chose, 50 or 60 photos that really clearly show the problem. Again, it sometimes the problem, you think it's only 1 degree. Right? We're only talking about 1 degree Celsius here. What could go, a lot of people you'll hear say like, it feels good. It's like warmer out, but it's like a little fever, right? When you're 1 degree hotter in your body, you feel terrible. And that's the way and so what happens is we, we're triggering storms, we're triggering flooding, we're triggering heat waves. And so that 1 degree really makes a difference. But I don't think people understand that it's not linear, right? It's not like, oh, we walk outside and we feel it. We walk outside and I don't know, you'd have to be somebody really sensitive to feel 1 degree difference, but the earth feels it.
Yes. And it's also about the impacts, the effects of it. So it may not affect your country so much or where you live so much, but it will be affecting other people in the extremities. And the more it affects them, the more people will migrate away from those areas, or it causes poverty or more issues, which causes more money to be spent. There's just more issues that come out of it that will affect you over time. You will get to you and will affect you in one way or another.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what
it's an ecosystem, right? We're an ecosystem and everything affects everything else. And it goes to the other part of this where people say, well, let's say I would buy an electric vehicle, but then if I plugged it in, maybe the electricity that I'm plugging it into would be generated at a coal plant. And that's true. But so it's not perfect. And if we wait till it's perfect, we'll just never start. It'll be way too late. And so we can't wait until it's perfect. And so all of you can't wait till it gets to you. We have to fix it now.
I have heard that argument before. It's an interesting one, isn't it? It's like, well, yeah, if I do that, it's going to be almost as bad as using the petrol or diesel car. Well, yes, as you say, at the moment, it's a little bit better, but in the future, it can become so much better given the way I was actually talking to some friends recently that I met up with, one working as a lawyer, litigating energy companies to actually pay for, I think it's energy storage to help with wind and solar, because, obviously it needs to be stored. It's great, but it sort of comes when not always when you need it. And it's very interesting them talking about that. And actually there are things going on in the background. They are sort of nudging on and trying to get the big companies who can make a significant impact to actually make a difference in moving these things forward. And when they do, having that electric car will make a huge difference, because the pollution it's ultimately or causing because of the coal generating power stations will go down as they're using more greener renewable forms.
That's exactly right. And so like right now, there's a little bit of a green tax, right? You pay more to be green in a lot of areas. So how can you help? Well, if you buy that electric vehicle, that's not perfect, but it's better than using a gas-powered vehicle. Maybe you are signaling to the car companies that you want more electric vehicles, and the cost of the vehicle comes down. And Bill Gates talks about this a lot, that we really need to get rid of the green tax in order for us to take on these new technologies.
Yeah, I wish I could remember where I heard this, but I thought it was a good idea. And it's about getting people to move to becoming more conscious about what they're doing in terms of the carbon they're emitting through small steps that they're taking. If some people will want to do that, want to reduce the energy usage or campaign or do the right thing because they want to do that. But many people, if you can combine it with actually saving money, it becomes a natural path for them to follow. And unfortunately, they're not quite aligned like that at the moment. It's getting better. It certainly is getting better, but it's not quite it's not quite an easy win where you go, well, I'll get an electric car and I will save money. And so they don't even need to worry about whether it's polluting less or not. Ultimately, it will do that. So you're quite right. If we can get rid of that carbon tax somehow through, as you say, people signaling to companies that they need more electric cars, therefore they're going to focus more attention on that and bring the price down, or some government support, it makes that pathway a lot easier, and it makes the natural way people will choose.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right.
I just finally mentioned the podcast as well. I love a good podcast. There's actually a couple of different podcasts. I've been listening to the one at the top here, The Collective. So you get to find out the origin stories of people, how they met, how they like working in it. So I'm working my way through those. But they've got lots of others as well, sort of talking about the book, and also for children as well, the carbon generation here. So there's tons of resources. Couple of things I wanted to know. Let's maybe take a step back, just very briefly. How did you get involved? What's your background, and what led you into joining the Carbon Almanac?
Yeah, so I do not work as a writer. I own a painting business. I love to write, though. And I also subscribe to Seth's blog. And when he put out an application to join the Carbon Almanac in the spring, in the fall of 2021, I quickly, very, very quickly, and it really could have been, a disastrous thing, that I almost didn't apply, right? I thought, oh, this would be really interesting to do. And I just put my name in the hat. And a week later, I got an email saying, come join us. And so that's really how it happened. And it almost didn't happen, right? Had I not read that blog, or if I kind of like put it off to the side, I remember really applying in about 20 seconds. I did not put much thought into it. It was really like on my phone with my thumbs. I thought, this is something I want to do. But I didn't really give it much thought. I didn't think I would be even looked at. And it really, what's so interesting is, we all of us have almost that same exact origin story, although many people probably took more than 20 seconds to fill out the application. But we all really respected Seth. And what was so neat about being there and watching this book evolve, and it's not just the book, it's all the resources, and then all the people behind the resources, because you can't just put a book out there. You have to have somewhat of a sales team trying to get partners. And when I say sales team, it's a word I would use in my business, but it's not exactly what they're doing. They're reaching out to partners. They're getting companies the book so that their sustainability officer has something more to give to the employees than more recycling bins, because there's not a lot of levers a sustainability officer can really pull. So so that's it really. But so we all respected Seth. We all applied. We all talk about how we applied because of him. But then to be managed on a team by him was stunning. It was the most interesting part of it to me, almost, where I could take what he was doing with our team and immediately use it with my own team. It was so interesting the way he chose people. He really wanted people that didn't need much managing, right? Which was just, it's so smart, right? Like you want the people to just take it and run, and when you've got those people. And so it really is. And it's the same way in every business. I run a painting company, and the painters that take it and run with it I have the happiest customers with those painters, right? Or my salespeople who take it and run with it and do something like I never even thought of. Those are the people that really stand out to me. And then there was this other part of it that was just like people were so thankful. He was so thankful, and then people became so thankful. And I noticed that every sentence that Seth started with always starts with like, "Thanks, Paige." Even when he was about to say like, "That's not a good idea," or "Let's go a different way," it was always like, "Thank you for like even thinking about that." Right. So I really tried immediately to put that into my own practice in my own business, to be more grateful for people who were trying their best. Right. And maybe they just needed a nudge in a different direction or some guardrails. So it was fascinating. That part of it was another part of it that really had nothing to do with climate change. That was just such a great experience.
It's interesting that, because I don't know if it's every Thursday, but there in Discourse there is a message that goes out asking people, if you've got anyone you'd like to thank or talk about something positive that happened, you do so. This is your forum to do that. And I was just getting started, so I really didn't know anyone yet. I wasn't engaged with anyone fully yet. But people were starting to thank me for the little bit of contribution, and the feeling that gives you. I mean, you think, well, I don't need thanks. I'm doing it. I don't need a sort of thank you from everyone. But actually, it's really nice, and it's quite infectious, because then you're starting to, you feel good about that. It helps you bond more closely with the people you're working with, and you start being more thankful to them, which is fascinating. So it's almost a very good place to be as well, because it makes you more appreciative of the people you're working with. So I love that. And it is interesting you bring up the sort of self-motivated people. So people working in the book, they tend to be self-motivated. And I know that a lot of people have come through the scheme. Some have left because they're waiting for tasks to be given to them. And while they might be really highly skilled or have a particular specialism that could be useful, they're waiting for a task to be provided. And that's just not the way it works. That might happen a little bit, but it's really, you've got to say, no, I can do that, and I will do that. And here it is. Rather than waiting for someone to give you permission. You can't. And I was hesitant a little bit about that. I was like, well, I need someone's permission to do this. And you want to work with people. You don't want to work at angles to people, but I think it is about saying, I can help with this. Here's my contribution.
It's exactly right. Yeah. I think going back to the thankfulness, what I realized on that Thankful Thursday, right? If you really look at what makes you feel good, it's specificity, right? Thank you for, thank you for doing something so specific that I could not do, right? Writing the JavaScript. I guess that's what you call it, writing it, coding it. I don't know. I don't even know, right? We know we need it, but we have no idea how to get there, but you do. And so when you thank somebody, I realize saying good job is really like the worst thing you could say, because they're like, it just feels like a throwaway. But oh my goodness, I saw page 33 in the kids' book, and the illustrations are beautiful. I love the colors that you used. That's the way to thank somebody. And that's what you see on that Thankful Thursday is specificity.
Yeah, it's, I mean, there's so much we could talk about in how the project works, way more than the actual project scope. It's amazing what comes out of it, and the ideas and energy it generates for not only this project, but as you said, your own business. You kind of take a lot. You can take a lot away from that. So should we wrap up a little bit and just sort of look at what the future is? So the book's been out for 6 months now, or so, 5 or 6 months.
I think 4 months. It's been since July, and now it's November.
Now that's out, what are you focused on now? What's the main sort of thrust of the energy in the project? Right.
So again, like as a person that's never written a book, I thought, well, you just throw it out there. But no, you have to get it to spread. And so so we took the rookie section and made it into the kids' book. And my job, I feel, is to get the kids' book to spread. Now, how do we do that? We need to find people that will link to us. School newsletters, all sorts of, believe it or not, governments have emailed us saying, can we use this? Because it's free, right? And getting something free out there is much easier than getting something paid out there. So we also, this is the other interesting part. So we wrote the book in English. And then all sorts of people came out of Discourse, the channel that we all work with, and said, well, I speak French. Would you like it translated? Of course we want it translated, because now all the French children can read it to their parents. Mm-hmm. And we want it in Dutch. Yes. So we have it in 19 languages. And so getting it to spread, part of it is getting it into different languages, right? Because you can't get something to spread if people can't read it. My son, who helped in the book, and he wrote a few pages of the book, has dyslexia. And it was really important for him to have the book published. So on the translation page, you'll see that it's published in something called dyslexia font. So if you go to kids and then translations, and then scroll down to, are you a reading specialist? Right there. So dyslexia font, you can click that. Dyslexia font makes it much easier for kids with reading troubles to read the book. The font is done in a way that's just much, much easier. Anybody could really read it, right? But what's so interesting about this is that dyslexia font you have to pay for it. Well, Matthew reached out to the dyslexia font people and got it donated. So they're one of our partners. And what we're finding is reading specialists want books in dyslexia font, but because they're so expensive to publish, they don't have very many. So even a reading specialist, right, becomes the person that spreads this. And again, the more versions we can get, the better. There's now an audiobook of the kids. And again, this all happened after I had practically nothing to do with these. It just emerged as like, hey, I could do that in my language, or I have the ability to do audiobooks. Let me get a bunch of kids and let them read the book, and I'll put together the audiobook.
I noticed this one earlier when I was doing some just research into this particular area. There's an AV experience where there's a child sort of reading out elements of the book.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. So that's the audiobook. Somebody took the audiobook without even asking. They took the audiobook and said, I can do this, and sent me the link to this and said, do you want this? And of course we want this, because if this is the way you digest a book, we want you to have it that way. Yeah, which will work really well. It's brilliant. And I just also quickly touch on this. There's a Carbon Almanac TikTok as well, which is great, because it's just about reaching those fingers out into different places just to attract the audience. And this is great. This one's brilliant. I was looking at this child, and he's just picked up this can he's found at the side of the road. And I don't know how old he is, but he's talking so well. He's just saying, please don't do this. Please don't do this. And it's just so cute. And you think, wow, I mean, you want more of that. And I think that's more of that. Isn't that amazing? Seeing it spread into lots of different places. There's always a sort of a theme around it, but it's essentially getting into the places where the little cracks where people are. It's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to round off with a few steps which I've that people can take if they're motivated after listening to this. There's a few steps that people can take, and I've pinched these from the end of Seth's podcast, where there's a guy who comes on and tells you about the Carbon Almanac, and there's a couple of things that he recommends. The first thing to do is to sign up to the Daily Difference email, which you can find on the carbonalmanac.org website. If you just go to the top and click sign up today, pop your email in there, and every single day you will get a short email with a thought and some practical action about what you can do. And some of them might not be relevant to you. That's fine. Just wait till tomorrow. There's usually something which you can maybe post on your social channels, forward to your friends or relatives, or something that actually might inspire you to do something. Great idea, because it keeps the people who are connected sort of in the loop. They're always being thinking about this, which I think is great. And we see lots of signups to this in the stats as well, so it's really nice. You can obviously get the Carbon Almanac book. Just go to the website and order it from your chosen website. It doesn't have to be Amazon. And the other thing, and Seth advocates this a lot, is
share what you find with the Carbon Almanac. So if you're subscribed to the Daily Difference, share that widely with the right people, and don't just sort of spit it out into the right places. I think it's much better that you fire or share something with the right person at the right time. I think that can work really well. Or just, finding resources on here and making sure people know about them. I think that's the biggest thing you can do. The other thing that might be worth doing, and it does say it slightly further down on here, is maybe switching your search engine to Ecosia. So this is a search engine that plants trees for every 45 searches you make. I don't know how many I've made. I've made 789 searches. So, I've planted a few trees there. But if you switch this search engine, you'll not only be helping plant some additional trees, but also you won't be supporting, a huge company, Google, in terms of their data collection. And also you'll be improving your privacy on the web as well. So there's lots of things you're accomplishing by doing that. So I definitely recommend you should try Ecosia. It works 90% of the time for me. Sometimes it doesn't work, but most of the time it does work really well.
Yeah, that's what I found. Yeah, and it's super easy. You just go into your settings and change your browser. That's it. Right? It's like click it and you're done. You can do it in less than 30 seconds. Yeah.
And I've tied it up to synchronize between my phone and my main browser here, so I can see exactly how many trees I'm helping them with. And actually, I quite like the layout. It's very friendly. The colors are nice. It doesn't feel as hard as Google. So it's certainly worth trying. Is there anything else from you, Paige? Anything else that you'd recommend that people can do if they want to contribute?
Yeah. So, well, if they're interested in joining us, there are links on the website for that. And, so how could you join us? Well, you just talked about the Daily Difference. Like, we need writers to write the Daily Difference, right? And so if you have that skill, or you have always wanted to be a writer, right? You can relive your 20s where you were choosing a career and try it out. And so those kinds of things, but also just really start talking about it. I'm working a little bit with what's the next phase of this, which we're calling the Cities Project. And that is getting discussions, and we call it cities, but I would say it's also towns and villages, right? So it doesn't have to be like cities. It doesn't have to be Boston, Massachusetts. It can be my town or even my neighborhood. And having people on the Almanac start small and really, really engage people at a potluck dinner, or maybe you could go from a potluck dinner all the way to, I've seen a couple people do like talks at, the city aquarium. So it doesn't have to be the city aquarium. It can be a potluck dinner, but let's start talking about it. Get your facts, get comfortable with it. And then, take something you're passionate about and 10x it.
Sounds good. Perfect, Paige. So everyone should go to thecarbonalmanac.org. You should be able to search for that and find it on any search engines, especially Ecosia if you're using that, and get involved. Paige, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. It's really good to meet you. This is the first time we've met. We've worked on the Discourse channel a lot. So it's really nice to actually meet you. So thank you so much for agreeing to come on.
Oh, it's so much fun. And you can see how lit up I am, right? Like when you're lit up about something, it does not feel like work. And I could talk about this all day. And I can see how lit up you are.
I do enjoy it. And I do look for every opportunity to do work on it, because I know it's both enjoyable and I'm making a small difference. So I do like it. Thanks, Paige. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and just talk to Claire. Claire's sitting in the wings. Claire looks after the club and runs everything for us. She does the important stuff, really. I just sit here and gas. Claire, tell us about what's coming up next week.
So next week, we're running our open club, where we're going to be joined by two guests who are going to undergo a marketing review with us. So we'll be sort of diving into their websites and giving them some advice. It's a fantastic opportunity for everybody to sort of glean some ideas for their own businesses and websites. So definitely come along and join us.
Cool. Thanks, Claire. Well, we're here every Friday from 10 a.m. We cover everything in marketing, strategy, social, SEO, video, and occasionally dive into very important subjects like this. If you've got something exciting to share or you want to come on to the webinar, get in touch with Claire at support@ratherinventive.com. And don't forget, you can catch up with all the previous webinars on our website, ratherinventive.com/membership. Now, most of our webinars are locked behind a paywall, but this one won't be. This will be available for everyone, and we'll make sure as many people can see it as possible. Thanks again, Paige, for your time, and I look forward to seeing you on Discourse.
Thank you very much, Ben and Claire.
My pleasure. Right. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you all next week. Bye.